Yes, sir. We're going to discuss spirituality again and try to delve into some of the wonderful daily atmospheres that move through us, that lift us. It's magnificent when you are aligned with God, and you're deeply reflective at the same time. There's nothing you can't do. There's nothing you won't do. Nothing that you won't do for God, for the truth, for what's real. It's very, very powerful, and it's very hidden because you're contrite, you're humble, not even out of being a good person, and you make yourself be humble and not pressure anyone else. When you're in this other atmosphere, you're in another universe. So it's not a question of trying to be humble and nice to this person or that. You are somewhere else. So of course you're going to be good, you're going to be kind, you're going to be powerful, you're going to be courageous, you're going to back up any good person with your life. But you're not really giving your life even when you give your life. I mean, any mystical person knows that if you, like between lies, we're going to discuss the end of lies today, but a mystical person would think before they had a book of Japanese death poems that my friend Greg had, and it's like a little moment of rest upon the wind, another woman shall bear me. Do you understand? You're not here even a hairline, and that's okay. You're kind, you're decent, you're true, but there's an ecstasy that carries you through the day and night, through the evening hours, and it's a very subtle joy and happiness, and when you're alone it hits you like it's overwhelming power of love, of kindness, but it's not human love and kindness, it's like a wind-swept universe of a torrent of presences and dimensions, and they're always there. And that's why the spiritual person is alone, and they're humble because the world is always seen as an illusion, as something we deal with, something we want to improve, but we can't take part in it. It's not real to us. So we don't have the normal desires and drives, even to have a family and so on. You do, but you don't, because you only relate to the deepest, kindest, most tender. Reflections of life. I hope this is making sense, because you're not really here. It's a softness, a lightness, a happiness, and a very delicate thrill. Everyone in this room is very, 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 well, you live very mature, powerful lives. So you know what it takes to get there. It takes everything and a whole lot more. But if you're decent inside, you have a true heart and a right intent about existence, you get there. And we always lose everything on the way, don't we? And yet at the last moment, when there's nothing left to give or to try, there's a little moment upon the wind, and then all of a sudden something drops in, and you have that new surge that you can't even describe. It's a beauteous feeling. I don't know what kind of words to use outside of that, because doesn't have to do with our physical courage. It has to do with something that hits our spirit that says, you can go on. So we've driven ourselves as far as humanly possible, and yet all of a sudden, that's not good enough. We all reach that daily, to be honest with ourselves and our friends and our loved ones. And then that extra something hits us. It's just a touch of the divine. And if you're spiritual, you really don't care about being here in the world, in this consciousness, in a body, as it were. And yet, out of compassion, you want to be here. And I know I will not leave here. I'm not going anywhere until all my friends and loved ones are here in this very quiet place. Till they're very circumspect, very clear, very aware of everything around them. And they no longer react to the everyday mediocrity, the ordinariness of everyday life. We know what's being said, and it isn't good enough to have a wonderful night and go to a concert on a Saturday with their friends or parties or whatever. There's something deeper and more wonderful. And we look in the eyes of our children, or fortunate to have a true love in our life, then, and we're quiet and we don't abuse one another, then that takes us away to this other land. And it's not far off in the distance at the other end of time. It's here. And I could say it's here this moment, but there is no moment. There is a soft thrill of existence, but it's not a sense of time. So any spiritual person knows we can sit down our easy chair in the evening, maybe reading or waiting for whoever or whatever, and and it can be 5 minutes or 5 hours, and time just flies by. For everyone in the room, when they're working out, everyone here is a gifted athlete in different ways, and that just thrills the hell out of you when you finish that, and you just feel good about everything. And then transcendent of that is this other atmosphere that runs through us concurrently, of a spiritual sense of a larger, more fulfilling reality. And it's the presence of the Almighty with us. And for this class today, for this empowerment time together for all of us, it's to understand that God, that presence we call God, is very, very, very contrite and humble as we are. And that's how we identify with our soul, with our spirit. Understanding that this humble presence we feel within us, we don't mistake it. The dark side, the temptation, force of temptation will make you feel like, oh, I'm nothing, I'm humble. They'll subtly turn that emotion to make you feel like you're not good enough. And you're growing up in the streets like I did in South Philly. It was like this person, or the bad boys would be like messing with you. I was an intellectual and spiritual, but very well trained from my dad, who was a cop. So now and then it took knocking someone out to be able to walk down the streets and date a girl and be a normal person. But the great majority of it was just being very humble. And it's not afraid of anything, and it's the sense of God, because God, when we meet God face to face, is very humble. And that transference, when we step into that atmosphere, that sense of God, it not only heals everything slowly, gently, over a period of time, and different problems we've had, or physical problems, they will all resolve in a way that will make a lot of sense. And it will give us some sort of magic ingredient to help us to pull others out of the morass, like we say, the ordinariness. Because there's nothing ordinary about being aware of God, being spiritually empowered. It's a delicate and kind state, speaking of it from the point of view of a person in the world, but that's simply like the shoreline of a great ocean, where we go to first appreciate and believe in and desire for something greater, for the greater seas. And the greater seas are God, and the shoreline is humility. So once we can become completely humble, we're not less than anyone. Please understand this, and that's what this is about. We are residing in an eternal state. We talked about Greg's book of Japanese death poems. It's all the great writers that for over many centuries deposited their words, and it was something always very mystical. They met the moment of death with a completeness, a humanity, a joy, a wisdom, a happiness, a thrill. There was no problem with it, stepping to the other side. That's why I started this out. I said, a moment of rest upon the wind. Another woman shall bear me. So it's just simply saying, between lives, there's this openness, this sweetness, this kindness. And as weak as this would sound to the everyday person in normal conversation, this is reality. And if we reside in this place, these different gifts and powers that are talked about spiritually are added unto us. But they've always been ours. We've given everything up to be here, to reside in this world, which is it's really a ghost town, like in the Old West. There's nothing here. It's very boring, silly. Everyone wants to be seen. And if you don't want to be seen, if you just want to lift all those you love up around you, when you get to that place, you'll be very powerful, very happy, and very humble. It won't matter about you or what you have to give or go through or what walls you have to walk through. You'll be there with God in heaven, here. The point being, obviously, that it's about being humble. It's not about you. In other words, it's not about me. I honestly do not care about me. I'm saying this reflectively on behalf of all of us who are spiritual in the entire world. And there are millions of very spiritual people who are completely spiritual. And they honestly do not care about themselves. They're here for you, for whoever they love, for all the decent people in the world. And they're here for everyone because they're not going out with an axe and going after the bad guys. That's not how you fight them. You fight them through understanding how lost they are. And if you react to it, then you're caught in the devil's trap. If you don't react to it, you get really, really deep. Like in old English literature, there was a writing about a woman was going somewhere, and she said, if I stop to kick all the barking dogs along the way, I'll never get there. And a lot of athletes have used those words recently, but the point is, you don't have to stop. Open your heart. This world won't be anymore. And then you can fix everything. There's nothing you can't do. There's nothing you won't do. You're capable, intelligent, kind, true, and dear. The same feeling we all have for our families in here. We'll live or die for them, our loved ones. You'll have for all the decent people in the world, and you don't have to have them a list of names. You'll walk through here like a torrential downpour of love, of truth, of awareness. And it doesn't matter how many in the world see it or don't see it, because you're not in the world. There is no world. There never was. These are not deep thoughts. These are simply reflections of the great writings, of all the spiritual treasures that we have, In other words, the hearts and souls of the great ones that have lived amongst us all these centuries, for eons. And yet they haven't lived amongst us. They weren't cavemen and then moved up to today. There's always, in all history, there's only been two kinds of people: spiritual and material. There's nothing else. And the spiritual know that this is not here, and that's what this morning's empowerment session is aimed at, that we understand the truth of God, and that there's nothing to fear. And even if we're not able-bodied in any way, I have a lot of heroes today, it's Veterans Day, who have tremendous physical injury, and I respect them certainly more than I do myself, to live, to desire to live a better life with all that pain, and you'll never hear it or see it from them for a moment. That's a man, that's a soul, that's God. Of course, I hate to see all my friends in pain here, and I mean, I do hate it. And it's from being in the world. Because there's no pain in spirituality, in God. It's the infinite opposite of that. There's just a sweetness, a happiness, simplicity. And again, through humility, when you arrive at that plane of experience, then that's your ability to know that you are the beach, an infinite beach, humbly looking out at an ocean that's infinite. And when you're there, you can step out and swim to the other shore. And everything in that ocean, which is infinity, which is God's presence, is yours. You're at one with it. So you don't have to swim there, you are there. The moment you're completely humble and contrite, and at the same time, if you're not, God will wake us up on the way to Damascus. You see what I'm saying? God will not allow us to be here beyond the time it takes for us individually to learn how to communicate with the lost beings in the world and give them one last shot at it. And it doesn't matter about what happens to if people want to remain here or not. It's that we don't think about that. We think about God's trial. I'll say this as a spiritual being. The experience of God is infinite, 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 infinite. There is no other word. Gorgeous, wonderful. There are no words for the infinite ocean of these golden universes. But you're at one with all of them. And infinitely less than that, excuse the words for dimensions, is this one little grain of sand, this world consciousness that doesn't exist. But to try to put it in perspective, it's infinitely smaller than that, or an electron, and it's like a particle of dust that doesn't even exist. When you're illumined, enlightened, aware of God, that's what this whole world, this dimension, seems to you to be. It's not even, you can't even be conscious of it, yet you are. And that's part of our dilemma. We keep trying to do the right thing, be the right, we're pushing, we're forcing. My buddy in front of me has done unimaginable things physically. We're never going to make it perfect. We're never going to make it right. But we're giving our whole heart to it. And what I'm saying today is give it one last surge, try it on its own terms, and then sit quietly with me, with all those in prayer throughout the world, and just let it be. There's nothing we can do or undo about this world. If they're lost, they're lost. But to come to terms with this larger self that we all have, it's called the human soul. It's us, it's ours, it's God's. That's why the mystics, the monks, the nuns around the world, they're not afraid of the world. They're aware of a larger world, of a larger place, a better time. And it's not off in the distance at the other end of time. It's right here, it's right now. The kingdom of God is within. It says within your heart, it's within the consciousness of your heart, your love, this sublime love that you'll feel spiritually is forever. It's wonderful. And you'll feel unbelievable sadness for the whole world. And that's part of the transition of reminding ourselves that we're not part of this grain of sand in hell. And we don't use the words hell or all of the other worlds with any trepidation. It's sad and it's a shame. And when you get here, you can walk through fires. You can walk through war zones and so forth and come out alive in your heart and soul. When I was I moved to say this, when I was in Vietnam, my buddy Robert switched weapons with me. He was the squad leader or platoon leader, and we were told to go somewhere we didn't want to go, and he stepped in front of me and took a bullet, and after he was dead, and you know, blood coming out of all the orifices and so forth, he was dead. And his soul said to me, "Get down, Robert." Do you know what I'm saying? It's like he was already dead, but it was from his soul. And so the other side and this side are the same thing. And no matter what happens, we're with God. And so we have to give our life to that. All of our life, all of our thought, all of our experience to be here with God, as God in a sense. Because God is us. The simplicity we feel, the kindness, the humility, the joy we feel watching our children play, it's beyond measure, isn't it? It's wonderful to know Him, the only God, and you, His very, very, very best friend. We can walk away for all the madness if we take the entire dimension with us. Then this otherworldly presence floats in, flows in, hits us with chills sometimes, and it makes the world around us more drastic, uglier, more crude, more ordinary. It's a wonderful thing to know God. It's a wonderful thing to know you. God is a presence, a simplicity, an openness, a kindness. And there's nothing to fear, nothing to want, nothing to need, nothing to have, nothing to hold on to. Not even your life itself. There is a God, there's a holiness. Please seek it. Please enjoy it. More than all of that, please own it. It is yours. It is you. It is what you are. You are a soul. There's nothing feeble about you. All the temptations of the world work on us day and night, and some of us find different ways of walking through it that are heroic and wonderful for our families, for our daughters. It's just a joy to fight for the right? And beyond that, I'm saying, put that same courageous heart that we share, that we have, towards understanding and comprehending, excuse me, this higher dimension. And all questions will be answered. And all the joy and simplicity and thrill of being spiritually illumined will be ours. You won't want for anything. Your sense of want and need and desire and life will transform very quietly and swiftly. For many of us, like for me, it was one moment. When you understand God as God is, what God is, and that you're the complete, full, and eternal partner with God and Godness. It's hard to imagine, but it's true. God holds nothing back. Everything that God is yours, including God. God's a very nice person and very kind. God has nothing to do with this seeming world. It's a fool's errand to try to make yourself known in this world. Not to not drive and do and prove and fight to the end, but that kind of courage is part of spirituality. But we have to realize that the world as it seems to be is not the direction we're going, because we're going to keep everything locked in time. Through birth and death and so on, and we step aside from that thought, then we'll be in heaven. Heaven is where you are. It's the way you think, the way you feel, the way you care, the way you give, the way you love. You and God are a singular presence. Please accept that. It's the perfect gift. So we reflect, we contemplate, we pray, we care, we love. And I want to make it very clear right now that from the beginning, from this moment on, you can heal anyone. You can heal anything. Not saying that everything happens overnight. I have different friends that I work with or whatever, and 12 years later I'll see somebody who was really bad and they'll say thank you for whatever. I'm amazed. You never know who or what. But if you don't close down and you're not afraid, you can walk through fire. I'm not saying that we're going to walk through fire. I'm saying that's a metaphor. The point is that the world's not true and not real, and if you live where I live, where all spiritual people live, you know, I laid down this morning, I went out on the deck after the rainstorm, and so there was sun there, so I laid back in the lazy chair, whatever you call that, in the lounge chair, and I was looking at my feet for a moment, letting the sun hit me, and I realized I could look right through my feet. My body is not real, and that I always have that. I always it's not really here. Understand that soft, and we all have that at different times, or when the one we love, we melt. There's a soft lightness about our perception. And we can live there forever. We really do live there forever. And the part of us that seems to be in the world as this person at this time is not even infinitesimal, it's less than that. I think of my loved ones over the years, or people that I thought were so wonderful and dear and kind and true. They're always with me. So the part of them that's locked in this dimension temporarily, we call it a lifetime, is infinitesimal. You see what I'm saying? We are a radiance of something. We are God's radiance. And so when we come to terms with what's being said this morning and allow ourselves to be everything that God is, then we'll never be alone. And we'll never be thoughtless or unkind or untrue. And we'll know no fear, for God is with us. And he comforts us. But we don't even have to use those terms. At a point in the beginning, you'll be going through a war zone, battling the devil. Beyond that, the idea of us being comforted is not, we won't have that thought. We won't hold on to what we have. We'll be giving. We'll be an ocean of kindness. And it's very hidden. We're very delicate. We know exactly where and when to do, to give, to achieve, to heal, to help, to correct, to learn, to teach, to inspire. We'll know all these things moment to moment. We're like the 1,000-petal lotus, or was it? Is that where it keeps opening from within? Because this is the experience of one spiritual. Whatever the circumstance is, because this world is infinitesimal, but that part of you will open up enough of you to help that situation, or to move it forward, or to fight that fight. And it's some days just to be happy with your buddies, your girlfriends, your lovers, whatever. It's just nice just to walk on the beach hand in hand with a friend or with God. Because your friend is God. When you kiss the one you love, you're kissing God. When you hug her or him, you're kissing God. You're hugging God. Open your heart, and the rest will follow. There's nothing lacking in spirituality. There's nothing to achieve or to attain to. We're already as one with God. And the wretched lives we've all lived at different points will be because this world is trying to entrap us, this dimension. And again, when we have these spiritual experiences, this world will be not even a grain of sand, not even an electron, infinitely less than that, when you experience the entire spiritual cosmos as it is, and we all will in different ways at different times. And each of us are very different, and we'll express it very differently. Thank you, Craig.